This was our trip to Redwood National and State Park. This was an interesting national park. It's different than others because it's also a state park and a national park. And there really wasn't like an entrance, like you pull up to a fee booth and there's the entrance. It wasn't really like that. You're really just driving along the Highway 101 up along the coast, and then you can take some detours. This was a beautiful trip up along the coast, lots of views of the ocean. At some portions along the coast, there was a bit of fog. It wasn't hard to see. It wasn't cold enough to freeze or anything like that, but it was just kind of foggy and hazy in parts, and that was really pretty. One thing that we do on road trips is we download audio tour guides that we put on our phone with an app. This is the one that we used on this trip. There are several different companies. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but this is the one we used on this tour. And what it does is as you're driving along, you reach little waypoints and it will tell you about the area. It'll tell you about the geology or the history and little stories. So if you haven't tried audio tours on your travels, give it a try. We just really love doing them. But this is the one we used on this trip. This is another picture of some of the haze and fog. There was only a small portion of the drive up along Highway 101 that was foggy like this, but it was really pretty and added some interesting diversity to the trip. But this was just driving along Highway 101. It's kind of a narrow, windy road, so I don't know that I would love driving that with a trailer. There were obviously some trailers and 18-wheelers and stuff on this road that I wouldn't have enjoyed that. I mean, that's up to each individual whether or not they want to do those kind of drives. But it's a really pretty drive up along the coast, and then you go down through the Redwoods, and there's some different roads you can take to go off the main road. The tour took us, we went from the south up to the north, and once we got up to Crescent City, we took the other leg of the tour, and it was a really kind of sketchy road. It felt like it was in the middle of nowhere. It was this one lane road, but there was two-way cars, so sometimes you'd have to pull over and let somebody by, and some of the areas were very narrow. There were trees falling down. It was a dirt road. The dirt road was fine. It was just very narrow, and so that was a little bit sketchy, but we made it without any trouble. And there was plenty of traffic on the road. That it wasn't crowded, but there were a lot of people out there hiking in areas, so if you did run into trouble, you would have help if you needed it. But that was an interesting part of the drive that wasn't along the coast. This is just looking out to the sea. Some of the drive along the coast again. It was really a pretty drive. The Redwoods were gorgeous. There were places to stop. There was a visitor center. You could walk out to the beaches. This was a pier up at Crescent City, and we walked down the pier out to see the ocean. And that was kind of a fun little trip that we hadn't really planned on making, but it was a 1/10 of a mile out to the end of the pier. Once we got out to the end of the pier, there were some people there that were crabbing, and they had they were pulling up some of their pots, and they let us watch them pull them up. And this one, you could see they caught a small crab, and that was kind of a fun thing to watch. I was trying to be pretty careful when I recorded this because I didn't really ask their permission to record them, so I didn't want them to be identifiable or anything. And so I was kind of trying to record around them without I knew I was going to put this in video, so I didn't want them to be identifiable. But there were some birds out there, of course, and you could see fish and The redwoods were fabulous and humongous. The pictures can't do them justice. But it was beautiful inside the groves, and there were lots of hikes you could do. This was that little one-way dirt road. A tree had fallen down, and it was a little sketchy getting around in there. I was kind of surprised that this road was on the tour because it was really off the beaten path, it felt like. But then we crossed the border into Oregon, and we saw lots of wildflowers on this trip, lots of redwoods, ferns everywhere. Oregon is beautiful. That's more of the coast with the waves coming in, some more wildflowers. There was just such an abundance of wildflowers on this trip. It was a real beautiful trip. Nice one to take some pictures on, and some more of the drive that we went through. We got behind a semi, and it was a little annoying because not quite a great video, but this is how narrow that Highway 101 is. And so it was kind of windy. I wouldn't enjoy pulling a trailer through there, but a lot of people did, and it wasn't scary at all. It was just, it's not a going 80 miles an hour kind of road, but then you'd pop out between the trees and there's the ocean. It was just really a beautiful drive up the coast. There were pullouts along the way that you could pull into and then hike down to the beach. But we didn't do a lot of that. But man, the wildflowers were just beautiful, these purple ones, and then this pinkish colored one. Man, they were beautiful wildflowers. I don't really know the names of them all, but man, they were pretty. The weather was a little bit overcast, so it felt a little like it was gonna rain, but it never really did. We had a little pockets of little fog up along the coast, but not anything that hindered the trip or the drive. Lots of driftwood that had washed up on the beaches, birds in the air. It was just really a gorgeous trip. One I would highly recommend. Some of the wildflowers were very small and my phone didn't zoom in and get great pictures, but wild raspberries were all over the place. Some of the little side roads were very green and covered in. These looked like clover. Something in the audio tour told us what these were, but I don't remember the name. But the redwoods were tall and magnificent. This was one of the little hikes we did near the visitor center. It was just a little short trail that, it was maybe half a mile total round trip, and there we are it took us about 6 tries to get a picture that we could even put on there because, Anyway, there was moss growing on all the trees, greenery everywhere. I'm sure because of all the ocean air, it was humid, and the trees were beautiful, different kinds of trees, not just the redwoods. A lot of fascinating facts on the audio tour about the trees and the geology of the area. Talked a lot about the plants that were visible, and we did several of these little side roads where you were practically alone. I mean, there was enough traffic that you weren't really alone, but there was a lot of places like this where you felt you were isolated and kind of on your own. But the roads were kind of narrow and windy. A couple of them were dirt roads. Most of them were paved. And even the dirt roads were graded and well maintained. A couple of the side roads had drop-offs on the sides, so the roads were very narrow and you had to be careful you didn't slide off the side of the mountain, but it really wasn't extremely scary. It was just something to be aware of. I wouldn't want to take big vehicles on some of the roads. This was a fabulous trip in Northern California, the Redwoods National and State Park. I highly recommend this one. It was beautiful. We could have spent much more time here and enjoyed the even more time. Thanks for watching.